Hello there. I am mostly set up. I'm just cleaning up a little bit of my excess clippings here because I was getting everything ready, trying to get everything cut up beforehand, but now I've got all these scraps that I'm going to save. I like to actually just save my little scraps like this so I can put them to use making some of the mice I make or some of the other little things. There's just enough space for me to actually use it, but it doesn't always clean up quickly. I got several different pieces of it today. And if you guys didn't see, today we are making a bigger puppy today. Today. So last couple times I've been making a couple small ones. I made this small Hounder, and then I made a small Vaporeon. And I was going to make a small Tyranitar today, but I realized I do not actually have the right colors. So instead, I quickly, last minute after working on the pattern, decided what I'm going to try and do is see if we can make a larger one of these using the exact same shape. I have suspicions that things like the snout are going to look different. It's meant to be goofy anyways, but I'm not sure how much different it's going to look. And there's probably a few things that might need to be changed anyways. So it'll be a little bit of fun to find out. I know that I can take a large plush and then shrink the pattern down and make it into something smaller. And with something like these bunnies, I know I can take this pattern and make it larger and it'll work, but I really don't know. I don't know for sure about making something small like this into something bigger. This is a little bit more detailed. So it's going to be an interesting test. My son will be here later. We're going to open up this pack, but he is eating right now. We kind of got everything put together a little bit late. So I'm working on figuring out the last of the details here. I built my pattern. I cut out all my extra pieces, or cut out all the pieces that I have. I will probably have to do some extra work afterwards when we figure out some sizes, like, for example, do the skull on top, but I'm not sure how I'm going to do the skull. I might try to set it up so that I can do a applique top to it, so basically do an embroider stitch all around it. But I'm really not sure if that's going to work. So I'm just feeling it out. A lot of times on my Not Poke Monday, when I'm making stuff like this goofy Vaporeon, I have a basic idea. I've got a sketch, and I've got it planned out, but I don't know exactly what will or won't work. I mean, even when I did the Charizard, like this section right here, there's some adjustments that I would have made, but I wound up thinking it was really cute. Well, for one time, I tried to make a Gengar, and I wound up it was so different from what I intended that I just adjusted it and made it a Mimikyu version. Now, I'm not going to be saying the names of these things anymore. I'm not going to be saying what they are as a creature. I'm just referring to it as a pup, a demon pup, because what happens is the AI for TikTok tends to hear these words and starts flagging me and reducing my view. So people won't even see that I'm doing anything. So what I'm going to be working on is this puppy today. We're going to make a bigger version of it, something a little bit more cuddly, and we'll see how it lands. And next time we might try and do like a Beanie Baby version of something. If I can't get the T-Tar colored material, I'm going to try and order it, but at the same time, orders are weird sometimes. You never know what's going to come through. So we can actually get started. I've already got everything cut out and ready. And I'm going to basically do the same order of things that I did when I did the small one, because it worked out really well. But I am trying to readjust my camera real quick. I'll have to adjust again in a minute when it comes down to time to open our pack. Assuming my son remembers. I'm pretty sure he's going to remember. He tends to get upset when I don't let him open it. So let's go ahead. And what we're going to first start off doing is I'm going to take the head, the snout here, and I'm going to attach it to the head. This is how I found to be the easiest way to sew it on the small version. I just have to find the right side. So it looks like, here we go. I think that's what I'm looking for. Now the size of this means I'm probably going to have to do a little bit of basting. Basting is a way of connecting temporarily two pieces of material. And my hope is that it'll work pretty much the same as it did here. All I did was I attached the snout to the back of the head so that I can sew all across the back, down the snout, And I left this open for the neck. I wanted it to kind of spread out open here. So I kind of did a little bit of adjusting for that. And what I may do is not sew all the way to the edge of the snout so that it opens up a little bit. So that the bottom where the neck is, dang it. I just got a live engaging turning off your camera showing static images or being away for too long periods. Oh no, this is just telling me like, hey, don't do certain things that I'm not doing. Okay. It's funny I know that it's got to be like some sort of AI program that they are running that is telling people all these little hints and tricks, but I don't think it helps out as much as they want it to. All right, so what I was saying is basting is a way of connecting two pieces of material together. What it is essentially hand stitching them together with a stitch that's just going to be easily removed and easily hidden. Now, you can do this a lot of times just using pins, but the more shape you are trying to connect, the harder it is to get pins to be in place because you need so many more. And when you need too many pins, they just start getting all in the way. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to just run a simple stitch connecting this curve to the back. I just got to get the right sides. You do still want to make sure you've got the fuzzy sides out, the outside's connected. So just very simple. You saw it went in and then out. And that's all I'm going to do. It's basically a running stitch, I believe is what it's called. And it's in, out, and you don't have to do one stitch at a time. I'm just kind of doing that because of the shape. But you just have to get the edges to line up. You can see that the two sides are lining up, and it's easier to tell when it's two different colors. So it's very fortunate that that's what I'm working on first. And what will happen is this will hold the material together so that it makes it a lot easier to run it through the machine without it kind of splitting on you. Because if you don't have it holding together, when you try and sew this part, you're going to have to like stop every 1/4 of an inch and slide, or you're going to have to stretch and pull and turn and all these other little things that just eventually get on your nerves. Now, I don't like to do this basting very often because it feels like I'm having to sew it before I sew it. It feels like doubling the work, and it seems like there should be a better way of doing this. But I just don't have it. And I know I could use the pins. Like I said, it's just that after a while of stabbing yourself with the pins and realizing that you have to put so many in there, I've got so much more held in place by doing this than I would with the pins anyway. So there's a balance between what you feel like is going to be easiest for you. I will try and do the next half with the pins so you can see what I'm referring to. I just don't know if that's going to work out because, like I said, the shape of this is there's so many curves in this little shape that I just don't know if I'm going to be able to pin it at all. There are other areas that I definitely can, and I will do that there. Let me get a little bit of a better light here. I think that should be better. Even if it doesn't mess with the camera, at the very least I can see it a little bit better, which is helpful for me. I do tend to sew on the right-hand side. Somebody mentioned that not too long ago. I do that just for my convenience. And because most of what I'm sewing is so small, when I make these little guys, I don't have the same allowance that I would have on a bigger plush. But because I'm so used to sewing on this side, it just feels more comfortable even when I do the bigger plushes. Hey, Vance, you want to open your cards? I didn't hear any of that, so you can just send them back over whenever. What number? Yeah. 6 o'clock. Yeah. So it's after that time. I'm trying to teach him to read a clock. And I figured I could use this as kind of bribery for teaching him because it's something he wanted to do. All right. So here's what I'm referring to. See, on this small part, it's a little bit harder to get a pin in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and try and pin it this way. I'll just pull the pin out as I start. Oh, I just realized I need to do it on this side, actually. Since I sew on the right-hand side, I like to make sure that I can keep the open side here so it keeps this level with where the boot's going. But that's just a preference for me. But you can still see what I'm working on here. I'm going to basically line up the back piece and the front piece and just put a whole bunch of pins in there. And you're going to see what I'm talking about, where when there's too much of a curve, it gets really hard to fit all the pins you need. Especially compared to when I was doing the basting using the running stitch, you get it's essentially having a pin every 1/4 inch, if not closer, because each place that you put the needle through and that the thread is holding in place would be essentially the same thing as having a single pin. Now, I want everyone to understand, one of the main things I'm doing here is not just the fan art stuff. It's running through all these little details so that you can realize how easy it is to start working on plushes on your own. I'm all self-taught. I didn't even know what basting was, as in like the name of it, until one day on live somebody told me. I just came up with the idea while I was working. It just seemed to be a way to make it work. And lo and behold, it turned out to be a technique that a lot of people use. So I'm giving all this extra information because I know how helpful it would have been for me when I was first starting. All right, so I have to take out this pin to begin with because the direction it was going, it would have just kind of got in the way. But I know how helpful a lot of this stuff would have been for me if I had been taking a class or somebody had been telling me all these details. So I do my best to help out where I can. Now, here's something else that I have learned myself. If you are working small and particularly, see the side of the head here? The side of this head, there's a top and another side. The head is made out of 3 pieces on the front and 1 on the back. But you can see how small all these are, right? Now, if you're working small in a sewing machine, you're going to have a lot of edges get caught up between the boot, the feed dogs, all the mechanical pieces, all the little crevices. So what I learned to do is I leave the previous piece in. So I've got the first one that I sewed. It's still connected by the thread that runs through the machine. Now what I'll do is a quick back stitch. And now I can actually use this to lightly pull and help feed the material through. Since it's now attached to that fabric, whenever you have a section that is really hard to get through and you can't get a grip on it, you can now use this as the first handle. Now there's points where that's going to be different and things that are going to change that, but it is definitely something that is helpful to know, especially when you're sewing small. See, now I can actually grip the material. Oh no! See, I actually did not do a good enough job pinning this in place. Look at that. Somehow or another, I missed all these when I was using the pins. You can see that these are held in place, but somehow I missed that completely. Now, what I'm going to do to make it easier on myself. Okay, one moment, buddy. Yes. I'm glad you cleaned your hands. Okay, well, maybe you should clean your hands. All right, I'm just going to do a real quick stitch here so you can see what I'm talking about. I don't know what happened there. It probably got caught up underneath when I first trying to do my back stitch. Oh, okay, that's a good idea. Yeah, she cleaned your hands for you. You are so silly. So you can see that essentially I'm just lining these back up real quick. And that's going to hold my material in place now. Hopefully better. Now you could always do a back stitch like Vance. One moment, please. I will do a single back stitch, just enough to hold this loose end, but that will still leave this thread really easy to pull out should it show up. Now, since you are going to be basically sewing right along where you stitched anyways, usually I can't even see where I put the stitch in. All right, let's go ahead and get that a real quick fix. See if that fix solves our problem. And part of it is because it's right there at the edge. I had that small point. Vance, not so loud, please. I said, yeah, you can't hear me because you're being so loud. Okay, real quick. Yes, it is a potential threat if you leave your pins in place. But you could also see that the distance of your stitch, Vance, I'm speaking right now, can cause it to go right over and have no problems. I have had problems. Immediately after saying that, I've broken a needle because it hit the pin. But it doesn't happen so often. the most that usually happens is it'll hit the pin and bend it like this. But it's a small point hitting a small area. So usually the needle just goes over the sides of it anyways. Okay, so let's see. Get these needles out of the pins out of the way because we're getting ready to open a pack. All right, Vance, whenever you're ready. Oh, you don't want to do it? Okay, we don't have to. Oh, okay. I didn't hear you. I wasn't sure. Mommy said yes. Yeah, Mommy cleaned your hands.
Yeah, Mommy asked me. Party is coming up.
Yeah.
Party.
Party?
Uh-huh.
I don't know what party you're talking about. Do I get to go to the party?
Well, it's for those drops when they have one.
Here.
Okay.
You've seen it before.
All right, so.
Look.
Yeah, you got a little penguin there?
It's the big one. It's ready.
You don't think? No, penguin, as in the animal, the little bird.
It's a big one.
No, not big, penguin. You know, like the Arctic bird? Okay, you ready?
Uh-huh.
There you go. Rock Ruff.
That's mine.
Caterpie. It's cute.
That's mine.
Oh, hey, don't hit the post, please. Hey, why don't you put your arms over here? There we go. Wooloo. This is my way of getting him to help out a little bit. Wheezing. He doesn't have any favorites yet, but he does like opening them. Sometimes. Careful. Yeah, Hop's choice. Nobody likes that.
I'm not.
Oh, looks like we got something nice. Oh, look, that's the one Mommy just discovered. Oh, look at that.
Oh.
I don't know if that qualifies as a big hit or just a nicer card. But this is the one Mommy discovered that she likes. So we're going to put this aside.
I like this.
Yeah, you like that? It is a cool looking
I'm
card.
not
Can Mommy hand me one of each of those over there?
I'm not taking
Yeah.
this.
No, I'm going to put it aside for you. I'd like to keep the good ones somewhere safe so that you don't have to worry about them.
I like it. I help you.
Okay.
No, that's mine card.
It is definitely your card.
That's mine.
Yes, but we're going to put it somewhere safe.
Not
Here, let
yours.
me see.
It's not yours. It's mine.
That is correct. It is yours.
I keep it?
Yes, you can hold on to it for now. All right, take your cards. And we will make a pin out of this later. We got a sword and a dude.
Thanks, Papa.
Thanks, Baba.
You're welcome, baby. All right, have fun. I'm going to get back to work now.
Cool.
Because,
I like it.
all right, there we go.
I like it.
All right, thank you for being patient with me, everybody who stayed. We are going to go ahead and continue. We are making a large version of this guy. I've already got like parts of it sewn together. What happened was I made the small one because I ran out of time one day and I thought it would be kind of fun to start making charms of these. But now we are trying to use the exact same pattern that I used to make this to make a bigger, more cuddly version. So here's the size of the head compared to that size. So with any kind of luck, the change will work. But I haven't made something this complex as a small version. I've done, so I make these as bunnies and as mice. Sorry, my stand is kind of trying to twist on me. I make these as bunnies and as mice, and I've made a large bunny or a large mouse that was about the size of a football. And I started with this pattern, and I was able to make it bigger, just kind of scan it in, and then make it bigger at some chain restaurant or chain store, not restaurant, like a copy store or a office store. So we're hoping that kind of same thing will work with this. I didn't go actually make a larger copy, but I roughly drew it out, trying to approximate it, all that stuff. So you can see where my hand stitching is. It's a little bit mixed in there. You could probably find it and pull it out if you really want to. But here's what it looks like on the other side. And since you can't see it, I'm not worried about pulling anything like that out. I'm just going to keep it in there. It does seem like maybe I got this a little bit higher, especially compared to this. But I'm not too worried about being 100% the same. When I sew it together, I'll just make some adjustments. I might even cut this down so I don't have to worry about accidentally confusing it. And then just literally just kind of sew a little differently. I will put a little mark here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try this a little bit differently. When I open it up, my intention is to leave just a little bit extra here so that this opens. And the reason for that is because at the base here, the chest is a rounded bottom and a flat top right underneath the neck. So this worked out really well here, but since I don't know what it's going to do on the bigger version, I'm giving myself just a little bit of extra room by leaving that open so we can see if I could always close it up later, but if not, when I put the neck on, that might be needed to keep this from bunching up too much. I'm also fully aware that in future versions, I might have to put a little wedge so it changes the shape of it. There's a whole lot of if, ands, or buts that I just don't know are going to happen. So let's go ahead and we're going to attach this real quick. Again, I'm leaving myself just a little bit extra room. And in fact, one of the things I learned from making the small one is that if I left that open, since I hand stitched that closed on the small one, I don't have to worry about leaving an opening in the back so I can stuff it or right side it out. That is something you always have to keep in mind. But if I can find new ways to hide that, that's what I'm going to do. And I always have to hand stitch it anyways. So if I have to hand stitch one thing, I might as well try and use that.
Pokemon.
You want more cool Pokemon? Well, hopefully we'll find you some more cool ones as we go. I want you to take care of that card for a little while. I'm going to put it in with your other cool ones, okay?
No, that's mine.
We'll see, buddy. When we get full arts and Illustrator cards, I put them aside so that he can have them in the future. But what's funny is every now and then we'll get a full art of a trainer or some other thing, and he doesn't care about those at all. So I try and use those to trade to get him more packs, since it's so hard to find packs. Vance, not so loud. You need to go back with mommy, okay?
What's behind?
What's- Oh, that's just a sleeve from Magic the Gathering. Yes, I am quite a dork, and I am totally okay with that. All right, baby, bye-bye. All right, so I am going to go ahead and try sewing the whole thing. Normally, I like to leave an opening right around here in this area so that when I am done, I can actually right side this out and I can stuff it from that hole. Since we are going to be trying to leave this, I'm kind of torn. I'm going to try and leave this, but I suddenly realized that I might as well back myself up since I don't know. And I'm going to make it an opening right about here. Now, if you're wondering how come I don't know, how come I haven't got an answer to this already, on Mondays when I do this, these are all first times. A lot of times what will happen is all I'm doing is I drew a cartoon sketch of it, a goofy cartoon version of it, and then, oh, I just realized I almost forgot something else too. I do a goofy version of it, and then I guesstimate based on my experiences what I need to do to make that work. So I make the pattern, I draw it up, I cut out the material, and then I just kind of run with it. I forget little things here and there. I don't remember all these little details because it is a first time. And the part of the point of that is the realization that I had that a lot of people are afraid to start making plushes. I have had a lot of conversations and chats on the comments where people were like, I want to learn how to, but it just seems so hard and I don't know where to start. Well, if you can start doing something goofy, you can learn from the mistakes to learn how to do the more detailed things. And then you'll find your own designs and patterns and styles, much like any other kind of art. It's just kind of a case of try, and then as you get better, you find what you like doing a little bit more. So what I do here is a way less serious, way less intricate and detailed plush so that you can see how it comes together without having to worry and stress about all those little details. I'll talk about how you don't have to worry about hiding the thread. You don't have to worry about the two pieces lining up perfectly. And you'll see that eventually it becomes a little bit easier as you kind of move away from that stress. And you find all these little things that you can do. And in fact, right now, what I just did was the tail. In order to make it a little bit easier, I'm actually sewing the tail into the seam. What you could do in the future was cut a circle here and then stitch around it. You might just make a tail and then hand stitch it on separately. There's so many different ways that you can do things. And me doing it the easiest way just gives a really easy, simple kind of starting point. Now, I do want this tail to be a little bit softer, so I'm not actually going to put any fluff in there. I figured that it'll be kind of cute that if you just wag it around, it'll look like it's wagging. But I am still going to sew it directly into the seam. Now, keep in mind, what you're doing is you're sewing how it's supposed to look. So this would be the butt side. I want it to be up. So if I were to hold it in place so I could physically see, I want it up here. I'm going to move it back just a little bit. That's where I want it to be. Now I know that that's where how I have to sew it in. A lot of times I have found that it is a little bit difficult to sew a piece in like this and get it at the angle you want. An example, I want the ears to be out the side. So I have to figure out what direction to point it when it's going inside the head, like for right here. I want the tail to be up just a little bit instead of down, but if it turns out to be a little down, that's fine. So I have to kind of do some adjusting, some fiddling, trying to figure out exactly how to get it to point upwards and be in the position that I want it in. And you can see, because of the shape of this, since I want it to go up, it's going to kind of interfere with the seam. So you just kind of have to tuck it back a little bit. There's a lot of little things that you'll kind of adjust as you go. And because I do want to keep it tucked back, I'm going to go ahead and use some seam or some pins. Let's see, I'm going to put right here. That should hold that tucked in a little bit. And then I will do another one. I think I'm a little close to the camera, but it's kind of hard to do the camera any closer or any further away from me and still be able to like work with everything. So let's see if I can get this to tuck in. I want it to go in quite a bit. I'm giving it a little extra space on this side so I don't have to worry about it falling out on me. But I'm still trying to move that curve so that it points upward. And I think that that should be pretty close to what I want. There are a lot of things. If I decide I wanted to do the basting stitch across that, I could right side it out and just look at it directly. But I'm not so concerned that it'll feel like a failure if it does point down just a little bit or straight back. And since I got it curved down there, I can feel the curve going up. I think that that's going to do pretty much exactly what I want it to do. My bigger worry, honestly, is the shape of the backside in general. So with this, I've actually got a good rounded butt to it, but making it big, I'm kind of worried that since there's no extra shaping done in this to round it out, that it may not take that shape at all. I have a backup plan of the belly is a separate piece from the chest. And what will happen is once I sew to about just past the tail, I will stop again. And then what I will do is I will start sewing at the front, right under the neck to get this on. That'll let me know how far that goes. And then I will put the belly underneath it and just kind of adjust according to that. So basically, since I don't know exactly where everything's going to stop and land, I'm doing all these extra little steps that will give it a little bit more leeway to work with. All right, so I've got the tail tucked in. I'm going to go ahead and sew this direction just because I prefer it on the right. Looks like my body should be pretty well lined up. Just a quick back stitch as often as I can. And the back stitch is because if you don't, what'll happen is it'll start to fray out a little bit at a time. Having a back stitch keeps it from the thread from unwinding slowly. Now you do have to be careful here. Not only do I have pins in place, which I'm going to try and remember to remove. I don't always do it, so I don't remember all the time. But you're sewing through the top, the bottom, and you're sewing through at least 2 layers of fabric here. Some places where it's folded over, you can see that that fold is in there. That's actually going to be sewing through 6 layers. So you don't need to blast through this. You're going to go kind of slow just to keep it safer for yourself. Every now and then when there's too many layers, the needle gets stuck or will jam up. There's a lot of little things like that that can happen. And you'll learn that as you sew. But if I can keep you from having to make too many big mistakes, that seems like a helpful process. Oops, let me get this pin out of my way and move this one as well. Just have to make sure I stop in time to keep that opening, because remember, I've got that opening here as a backup in case the next stitches need to be done differently. Hey, Foxy! I have not been able to see. I was kind of in and out from the screen at first, so I'm not sure if anybody else is here. I bet Cat B is in here somewhere. I don't know if Shadow has made it or if Spaz has made it, but we are kind of seeing how things are working out. There we go. See? So that's going to be my tail end. It's kind of got that Dotson shape to it. And it looks like there might be another odd problem. Wait, what happened here? Oh, that's what's happening. So when I lined it up, you can see I did not line it up very well. Well, not too bad. I just missed this side of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and fix that real quick. It's going to bring the stitch in a little bit on the opposite side, but that's not a worry at all. You can see how easy it is to fix that. This falls into the category of problems that you might be super concerned with if you were overly stressing yourself out about being perfect. And just another reason to say, hey, have fun with it. There we go. Now we're going to find out what the butt does. It may be a little bit too narrow. It worked out really well on the small piece. I love the shape of that. But on the bigger ones, it might not land quite the same. So we're going to find out pretty soon here. All right, now for the neck, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about for attaching that. Here's the bottom of the head. And here is my neck. It's a little bit wide, so I might wind up cutting it short, because otherwise the neck will be right about here. And that seems like it's a little bit much. As an example, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you just a real quick. I'm going to center it out just as much as I can. I think what I want it to be is pretty close to the width of the head itself, right about there. And I've got maybe 1.5 inches extra, like not on each side, but like total. And if I were to flip this out, I think that it would take a little bit too much away. So like it's going to make the head a little bit too small. So I'm just going to fold this in half real quick. I'm going to do some quick adjusting. This is exactly what I'm referring to with the figuring it out as I go thing. It's a pattern I have practiced on with the small version, but we're doing something different enough, and the different sizes of material will make a big difference. Now, there is still a chance that when I put this together and I flip it right side out, this head is going to have a really weird shape. It's going to be bowed out on the side and too narrow here. It might add to the goofiness of it and make it more fun, but it also might be something that has to be adjusted in future versions of this. One of my goals is to make sure that I finish the first version and just let it be and not stress over too much. And in doing that, I get the joy of not having to worry about if it's perfect. I have made a lot of different adjustments. I've made some a second and third or fourth time and made changes on a couple of them. But also, like for example, the char that I made, it wasn't exactly like my drawing, but I kept it that way. I thought it was cute. I didn't make any more adjustments to it.
What's his name?
His name's Houndor.
It's the small one.
No, it's the tiny one.
No, Houndoom is.
No, Houndoom is the next one. So what I'm doing here, you can see this is the bottom of the belly, right here, bottom of the belly.
Houndoom.
All I'm doing is lining this up to here.
It's small, Baba.
Man, why are you yelling at me?
I asked you, it's small.
Yes, and it is the small one.
Houndoom.
Yeah, well, this is going to be a normal size Houndor. I'm not making a Houndoom yet. Houndoom. Doom. Okay, now. depending on what you're working on, something like this would be kind of a bad thing, but I am actually leaving a belly open, and I'm going to sew the belly onto it. See, I've got this flat end, so it hugs the rounded part of the bottom of my chest. See right here? So now I've just come over to the other side, and I'm going to do the exact same stitch that I just did, or not stitch, pinning that I just did. Get everything lined up. Now, this is going to cause a little bit of a change in shape between the chest and the body, kind of pushing through in different angles. And depending on circumstances, that could be exactly what you need. The relevance is that when you're working with material compared to something solid like wood or metal, it's very often hard to tell exactly how the stuffing pushing from the inside will actually give it shape. And a lot of times, if I were to be doing this for a completed brand new type of pattern, I would actually use a cotton material and make it, then adjust that pattern, and then I would make a new pattern, and I would repeat it over and over again, making several failures in a row until I got everything adjusted. And sometimes just like a quarter of an inch of adjustment makes a huge change in the shape of your plush. A roundedness, a flat area. So really you just kind of have to decide on what you're working on and what level of curves and shape you need. For example, on Wednesday, I'm going to be I'm making a custom designed plush. It is a mushroom slug is what we have decided to call it. And it starts from my drawing. So I get to do all these different things to try and figure out how to make it match my drawing without the expectations of anybody else's pre-made conceptions. So I have a lot of leeway to it, but I also get to be very picky where I want. And in order to do that, I have made multiple, well, so far I started off with this one and I made some adjustments to it. See, there's a lot of things that just didn't line up in different ways. And then I adjusted my pattern, so I've got a new one. See, it's taller, there's a different shape, and you just kind of do that over and over and over again until you finally get something really close. Let me show you, like, for example, this is the last prototype frog that I made, and here's the first minky frog. So there's a lot of things I might still make adjustments to, but I made like 5 of these before I got to this. So whenever you're trying to make something and you want it to look a very specific way, just make it out of cotton. Fail over and over again. It is totally okay. Each time you fail, you're going to get a little bit closer to what you want, and you're going to know where your adjustments need to be made. All right, let's go ahead and get this sewn on. Oh, I can feel it. It's digging underneath already. Sometimes whenever you have a material kind of dig into the bottom of the machine, you can just kind of pull it out, reset, start over. Sometimes you have to go through these extra steps to get it to work. Right here, I had to give it just a little bit of an extra pull to get it started. But now that we're through, the rest of it should work pretty decently easy. There was a lot of curve in this, and I could have used basting. But as I mentioned before, I'm not really a fan of doing it because I don't like repeating myself for these things. It's kind of funny. I say, make a whole bunch of failed versions of a cotton. Make your pattern, test it out. When it doesn't work, make some adjustments. And then I'm like, I don't want to baste it. I don't want to sew and then sew. I know that's very contradictory, but I think that that's a personality thing. And it's like, it feels different enough for me to not want to do it. And I'm sure there's more than a few of you out there that are like, yeah, I know exactly how that works. It's probably under the same line as like, I don't want to have to tell somebody how to do something, so I'm just going to do it myself. And again, backstitching at the end is always very important. Keeps your stitches in place. I didn't do that for the longest time. There were a lot of projects that I made without doing any backstitching. And I would find that right where I started or stopped sewing, it would start to come undone just a tiny bit. And that was when I learned about backstitching. So little things add up. All right, let's line this up. Do the same thing. This will be a little bit easier to start because there's not a narrow corner. See, it didn't get jammed up in there and I didn't have to like force it through. One of the things you do want to keep an eye out for is when you have a lot of curves and you've got one straight piece connected to a curving piece, you can see right here, all this material is kind of buckling under because this is a straight piece. I'm actually trying to force it to move outside of its natural position. And that's, of course, how things are done, but you're going to want to pay attention because if you start sewing, you let that happen, you're going to have this weird end where you've got part of it sewn correctly and then it folds under. And that could just become annoying depending on what you're working on. One more second here, and I'm going to show you guys what it is we're working on for anybody that happens to be just now joining us. I am making a larger, more cuddly version of this guy. The intention is we're also testing to see if I can take the same pattern that I used to make this, the small version, and I've drawn it up larger so I can see if I can do that directly. I honestly expect a lot of problems right here and here in particular. I expect the snout to be a weird shape whenever I sew the bigger version, and I expect the butt to not have any kind of roundedness to it. I expect it to be kind of flat. But that's exactly what we're testing to see. And the good thing about that is if I wind up making more small ones, I know that they'll work for the bigger ones. And I say it because there's a lot of shapes in this that will be repeated in other types of projects. So it kind of will help me be more confident, or at the very least know that I've got a plan for full-on redesign. But since most of the goal is to make a goofy one, hey, Cat B, I wasn't sure if you were here. I saw Foxy join up and I hadn't seen too much going on otherwise. And here is our chest. I'm not even going to right side this out to find out. I'm just going to go ahead and attach the belly. And then we're just going to kind of run from that. This, I'm going to do my best to center it. See, here is center. And it looks like right about here is center. So we're going to put a pin right there. I am going to use this side because it's the single piece, the single flat piece. It'll be a lot easier to follow. And I think that this is too wide as well. Wait, let me see here. I'm going to have to temporarily pin this right here. So the reason I had cut the neck a little bit more narrow because I could tell that it looked like it was going to be too wide. So if I follow this, I want this corner to line up with this corner. And I can already tell that is too far. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. And I'm going to mark it. I'm going to mark it a little bit closer in because I'd rather have too much rather than too little. Trying to get my pen set up here. Just a little bit there. I draw my mark right about here. This is where I'm going to try and cut it to. But I'm also going to check this side to see if it's about even or how much I have to adjust. Yeah, see, I didn't quite get the center. That's how far off I am. So let's go ahead and readjust this. We're going to move over about that much. Now, when I do a final version of a pattern, if I know that I want to keep centered points, whenever I do the pattern, I will do a little, so let's imagine this is the belly. I would put a little triangle just right at the center point so that when I'm tracing, I can draw that little triangle, but I'll cut that out. And that'll give me a very solid stopping point or line or whatever is needed, a solid mark so that I would put that on both the chest part and the belly part so that I can line them up together nicely. Let's see, that's got about here, about a thumb's worth. Man, I just cannot see. I did the exact opposite. I'm just going too far. And all I'm wanting to do is cut off an equal amount from both sides rather than just cutting off from one side. So now I've got about a knuckle. Follow that along again and about a knuckle. So that should be good. I'll go ahead and do a mark right here. Take this off. I've got all kinds of fuzz sticking to my face today. If you've ever worked with Minky, when you go to cut this, you can see right here how much fur there is. When you go to cut it, you're going to get all kinds of fuzz. And sometimes that fuzz just gets in the air and becomes maddening. I'm going to cut both at the same time. Hopefully that'll work out. Now, to show you what I'm referring to here, this is going to be the shape the belly takes. That's my goal. Very simple kind of sitting puppy look. I will still add the legs to it, but this way it'll sit down flat. Just me. What happened? Are you talking about the fuzz? Because that drives. Is it just me or that I can't hear? Oh, okay. So it is just you, Cat B. Okay, so it sounded like. I guess you guys can hear me because I think Foxy said she can hear me. So hopefully, Cat B sees that. And now I should just have just a tiny bit on each side. I'm going to go ahead and estimate that that is right. So I'm going to start pinning here. Now, if I do this right, I should be able to sew the entire bottom all in one long stitch. If I have to sew it individually, that's totally okay. But it'll let me know here in just a few moments. Excellent. Looks like I've got just enough little extra on each side. And that'll be enough for the seam allowance. Now, if you are lining up two pieces, one of the best things about pinning or basting is that you will see not only that you've got it lined up properly, so I've got like the same amount on each side, but what happens is if you are just sewing between the way that the boot holds it down and the way the feed dogs move it through, sometimes you'll find that the top piece and the bottom piece, one will stretch or bind up, and you'll wind up with one of them coming up short because, for example, if I had this on top and the bottom was being stretched as it sewed, you might find this corner lands over here. I mean, look at how much difference there is when you try and flex the stitch or the material. If you don't pin it in place, you're going to have a lot of circumstances where your materials will just decide they don't want to line up. And I guess that I am going to go ahead and just sew this separately. I really thought I was going to try and do it on one stitch, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and run this real quick, make it a little bit easier on myself. Come on. See, something's binding up. And it could just be that the needle was holding it in place. The pin was holding it in place. Get that out of the way. When I was doing the small version of this, I didn't have to worry about a lot of these things. I didn't have to have it pinned in place because it's such a small area to work with that all I had to do was pinch it by hand and it was able to hold everything where I needed it. I don't know what happened. I just had to close the app and restart it. So you didn't have sound, but you do now. I believe that's what you're saying. I hope that fixed your problem. Because if everybody else is having that same problem, I may have to do the same thing. I may have to reset and come back. I know Foxy said she could hear. All right, now, when I'm doing this end, I kind of want to know where the center is as well. Let me go ahead and fold this up real quick. The reason I want to know where the center of this one is there we go, is because that is where the tail end is going to go. I'm going to want to pin all the way around, and I want this center line to line up here. And the relevance to that is that I'm going to have to stop on this one and then start because I may not have sewn far enough down to get that to work. I've had a lot of weird little problems happen with TikTok apps sometimes, so it does not surprise me that the live decided not to give you sound until you reset. I'm glad you got it figured out, though. Real quick pins, real quick pins. Now, with the size of that tail, I may have made it too big. I may have made it too low. But it looks like this is going to land pretty much right where I want. Giving me that little bit of extra space that I had hoped for. See, right there. And you can see that right down towards the back end here. And this is just a way of kind of prepping to fail. As much as I despise that concept, because what I'm doing is not practiced, has not been perfected, it's just a little bit smarter to be a little bit aware of where things might fail. Now, to make this a little bit easier on myself, instead of continuing to pin by putting this down, you can see this doesn't exactly line up. And that's because I stopped sewing short. And I did that on purpose. But I cannot guarantee that I will move that down the same amount and continue pinning. To keep me from having to worry, I'm going to simply go back to the front. Going to keep my pins on the same side so that I know where I'm sewing. And I'm just going to move towards the back again. Try and get everything to line up as well as I can. There we go. Now, a lot of these steps are things that you might not have to worry about after you have perfected your pattern, after you've made the same thing over and over again. I make so many new things that anytime I do something I haven't done 30 of already, I like to just take a little bit of time to do a little bit of extra precautionary work. Now, when I make a plush, even if most of what I make is bunnies and mice, when I made this guy, I didn't have to worry about trying to figure out where the lines were. I was able to do it pretty much the same way. And I could kind of go on autopilot. There's a lot of little details to it, but there's a lot of things that I could just run through. If I were to make several of these, there would come a point where I don't have to do the pinning. I don't have to do any guesswork. I would have put lines and marks on my pattern. But when you're first starting, just go ahead and do the extra steps. Yes, it seems like hard work sometimes. It seems like a little bit extra pain. But here's the comparison. If you don't do it right and you go through and pin all these that direction, and then this doesn't line up, then you've got to unpin it anyways. And then you're going to have to pretty much start from this side. If you don't pin it and you start sewing, and this happened to me the other day, I started sewing something. It came up short. I had to unstitch 2 feet of stitches. 2 feet of just straight stitches had to be undone to fix my mistake. And it was because I hadn't done that thing before. And I made an assumption that did not add up for me. And I am not exaggerating. What I was making was a snake on a blanket. This is a voiceover. He recorded this video from another creator. That's not true. I also did not record that this is a voiceover comment. Don't listen to him. Vlad doesn't know what he's talking about. Vlad hates puppies. He also likes to beat peach trees on the weekend. He also thinks the dictionary is a candy. He doesn't know nothing. All right, let's go ahead and give this a quick run. I may have to do a little bit extra stitching right here at that corner because I may not have got it all the way to the end. And I'm going to have to watch right here. Now, when I get to this point, I'm going to fold the butt over, sew up to my line, and then I'm going to lift up and try and move this over this way so that it starts sewing immediately again. That way I don't have this pinned down by accident. And, on something small, that's not something I would worry about, but that would definitely be a problem on a bigger piece like this. Vlad is one of my gaming buddies. We have another partner that we play with pretty regularly, but it's always got to be either Vlad's team or Sky's team because the other guy, he's not very good. He kind of just got the game. He's got like a good internet connection, so he thinks he's special. All right, so I've got my needle in. I'm going to lift. And I am going to maneuver this side of the material over so that now this side is flattened out. Now there will be a little bit of an overlay on that stitch, and that's essentially the spine, but it's not going to have to worry about it sewing all the way up it. This is actually the same thing that I do when I make my bunnies and my mice. On a smaller scale like this, or a smaller scale like those, it's a little bit easier to not have to worry about. And I've even mentioned that a couple times while I was making them. And I even showed how that example does not show up when you right side it out. And all the way to the edge. Cut this loose. Be careful not to cut your scissors into your pins. Wind up breaking your scissors or dulling your good fabric scissors would be super annoying. Not Sky. I don't know. Flack said it was Sky's team. All right. Okay. Let's get all these pieces out. Now we can finally right side it out. I'm going to double check before I do. Got my trusty chopstick tool here. Slide this in, and I'm going to see if my corners got sewed in. See, that's exactly what I was thinking was going to happen. It's probably on both corners. Nope, looks like this one got sewed in pretty good. All I'm going to do is just a real quick stitch to line that, fix that. You can even see where the stitches were missed. There's a little line right there. So that's a real easy fix. You could do that anytime you think you may have missed something. Earlier when I had sewn the tail into the body, I had missed it and it was very clearly visible. But sometimes you can't see. Like, for example, that corner, you couldn't tell. But you could always take your chopstick and run it along any of your seams, like right here. You can see where my chopstick's rolling. And you can find out if you missed any spots. That becomes particularly relevant when you have like small seams and all this other stuff. For my feet, I have to do that every time for each of my feet because there's always a possibility that one of these little sections didn't quite sew in. And now cut off a little bit of this excess. And we're going to see how this turned out. I still have this for a backup in case I need to back it or flip it out that way, but we're going to use the neck to begin with. When I made the small version, I set this up so that I could hand stitch the top. The ears are just pinned in place because I knew that the skull on the top would hold it in place. I'm not sure how that's going to work here. I'm probably going to do that same thing, but it may wind up being a little bit different because of how big this is, and I may have to adjust this pattern so that I can basically sew from here across and then sew the skull on with the ears because I don't know if the hand stitching will hold it in place well enough. There's a lot of little adjustments that might need to be taken there. Loose thread. Let's get rid of that real quick. And I think everything should be closed up well enough. Let me go ahead and get some of this out of the way. Back up just a little bit. I should have plenty of fluff here. I just had to empty out a whole bunch of prototypes because they were taking up space on my table. So what we're going to do now is literally just stuff it, see if it works. And if it does, we are good. And if not, I'll make some adjustments accordingly. This is going to be the entirety of the body. Everything else is going to be hand stitched on. From the bone on the back to the ears on the head. You can see that this is a little bit clumpy because I had used it before and it was just sitting inside a frog pattern forever. My nose is crazy itchy again. I would have thought that the Oklahoma weather would have been wet enough that I wouldn't have to worry about the pollen or anything like that, but it seems like something is really kicking off my nose today. All right, so it's kind of looking like, for the most part, the chest and the belly are going to do exactly what I hoped they would do. They were not the parts that I was worried about, but it is nice to know that that's going to do work. So now it's going to be a case of whether or not I have to make adjustments for the bottom, the backside, the butt, or the snout. And I may have to go get another bag of fluff. I hope I have another bag of fluff. If not, I'll just take apart one of my other prototypes for my mushroom slug. A little bit extra. Use my trusty chopstick tool. So that's not too bad. There's this wind up being a little bit bunched up. because of how I didn't keep it flat. It's kind of meant to be curved, so like one side there's like a bow inside of that, but that should be okay. The butt side of this does not look bad. It looks like, yep, I missed an entire section. I forgot to close up the stitch. And now that's a funny place for a stitch to be missing. That's a kind of a hilarious place for a stitch to be missing. But we'll fix that later. So nobody tell anybody that you saw something dirty here. If Vlad's still here, he saw the puppy with that hole and he got all kind of goofy about it. All right, I got to go get some more fluff. I will be back in just a few moments. Oh, that's right. I forgot that I had gotten a whole big old box of fluff. And by big box, I mean this is like a 1.5 by 1.5 cube full of fluff. So I've got plenty of fluff. Sorry about that. I didn't even think about the idea of not having enough. Now this is a different kind of fluff too. I got it because I was able to get like a big bulk amount of it. And my hopes were that it would land and look pretty good. It feels pretty soft. But the downside is it feels like it might compact up pretty well, too much. Like I might be able to overstuff this a little bit easier. And if I overstuff it, it'll feel more like a pillow than a plush. So this will be a good time to test it. I know it'll work in certain types of plushes. Like I got it to make a 20-foot snake. Now that I'm finally working on finishing up that commission. But I had to know what it would feel like too. And in smaller form, it's not bad. It feels like I can fluff it out a little bit nicely. Now, if I hand stitch that down, the funny thing is this nose actually looks a lot more like the nose I drew up when I did the goofy version of it. I'm going to turn on my backup phone while this is going. I draw these out to be goofy. Let me show you the Rapidash. For example, when I did this Rapidash, I wanted this kind of goofy snout. I thought it would look cuter. And doing what I'm doing is meant to be goofy. So I gave him the belly, a lot of little changes like that. So when I made the small one and it looked more serious, because it does, it actually looks cute, but it looks closer to more of a serious plush. But now that I've got it in the big form, this, even when I put the skull on, it's got more of a goofy roundedness to it. Let me see, I'm going to pull up the sketch that I had done. This is my old phone, my old phone. And I literally just use it for this show so that I can reference the images. But you see here, it's going to have a little bit more of a goofy look to it. But I do honestly think like the neck will work out fine. When I stitch here, it'll bring that down just a little bit. I don't think it's going to buckle up too much. I might have to slide this up a little bit more in the future. I thought I actually lined it up with where the jawline is, but I guess I came up just short. I may have to adjust some of the stuffing, so it's probably a good thing I've got this back here so that when I stitch this, I can actually adjust that. But I think that the overall, let me go ahead and move this back a little bit. I think in the overall, that's going to do pretty much what we need it to be. So now we can go ahead and start working on figuring out the skull on the top and the ears real quick. The ears I've already got cut out. I'm going to actually sew those real simple. Get this out of my way. And that's another thing. If you are watching this and you're enjoying what I'm doing, feel free to follow first off. But also, feel free to comment and or ask for different ones to be made. I was originally planning on just doing Gen 1 and 2 because I started on 2. But I've realized that my son is loving so many different Pokemon. He'll bring a card to me a day at least and say, you make this, you make this. And he doesn't even know what it is. He just found a card that he kind of liked at that exact moment and decided to ask for it. So what's going to happen is eventually I'll be like, yeah, I'll make that one today. And we'll come up with a plan. I'll do the drawings for it. So I'm a lot more open to what I do. Plus, every now and then someone will commission one. Like, for example, the Snivy. I made this because someone commissioned this one specifically. I drew up a goofy version of it. She approved it, and I made it the next day. I do a couple different lives during the course of the week. And I'm working on adding to that because I want to do more and have a little bit more variety. My name, The Versatile Deviant, is not just because I like to make things like this that can be worn as a hair clip, a clothespin, and a charm. I like to have it versatile use, but because I also do leather work, I do painting, I'm getting ready to make a binder for Pokemon and then see how that works out. I love to do a lot of different things. So I'm trying to find ways to kind of add more diversity to my lives. Even if I just start off by adding another day where maybe I do a custom request mouse or a custom request of a different type of plush. Because on Wednesdays, I do what I call Weird Wednesday. And the first one I made was what was the first one? I think the first one I made was the Cthulhu, a cute Cthulhu, and I made basically I just made my own design of a Cthulhu plush that I let everybody help me pick the details. Like I had the viewers help me pick what wings to put on it, what kind of head details and things like that. So maybe I'll do a fan day where people that follow have made requests, and I just make those. So I got a whole lot of different options here. You got mice, like at the house? I had to check and see what you're referring to. Or are you talking about the ones that I made for you? Or are you talking about something at home? Which is funny to me because I actually lived someplace that had a mouse problem, and you would think that I hate them, and I definitely dislike them, but I make mice plush. So that happened too. Okay, and part of that is because I nicknamed my son Mouse. So, of course, I wound up having to make a plush in honor of his nickname. My nose is crazy itchy. All this fuzz. I don't know if you can see it every now and then. There's like fuzz traveling across my sewing machine or drifting in front of the camera. If you ever work with Minky, you might consider getting a mask. But I don't know if it's better to have a ventilated area or not because the fan is just kicking it all over the place. And it's just a ceiling fan. It's not even like a heavy fan pointed directly at me. All right, so these are going to be my ears. When I put this one together, I just did a quick stitch to hold it at the top. And then I hand stitched the skull on. We're going to try and do the same thing here. We're going to see how that works out. And one of the things about that is I do have to have the head stuffed. Part of that is because I need to know exactly where it's going to go. And part of it is because I haven't made enough of these to be able to say, okay, I don't have to worry about it. I know exactly what it's going to look like. So let's see if I can do this on camera or not. I may not be able to see what you guys are saying. So if anybody says anything to me, please feel free to repeat. Cat B helps quite a bit whenever someone asks something that I can't see, or send me a direct message. I promise I'm not ignoring you. It's just that I've only got one phone and it's here, but I'm over here. Like give or take over there. So it's like right next to my head while I'm sewing. All right. Let's see. We get that here-ish. Have the ears back. Again, I want them to be kind of floppy. So I'm not putting any stuffing in them. Kind of like this tail. I want it to be floppy because I want it to look like it wagged. Like when it's happy to see you. I think what I can do is I can go ahead. Oh, I've got a little bit of worry here. I'm just going to hand stitch this later instead of sewing it up. What I would have done normally is after I sew the bottom on, remember how I lined everything up and centered everything, but I still had this excess? What I would have done if I had remembered, again, this is the first time doing this, I just would have done another quick stitch right down here. Just run that right through the sewing machine. If it wasn't for the fact that I have to do all these external stitches in order to get to a finishing point for the night, I would just go ahead and undo it, but I've got a whole lot of fluff in there, and it's not that I'm lazy, it's that I don't like repeating myself in action. I'll say the same things over and over again, of course. So let's see, we lined this up. What I'm going to do is just a real quick top stitch. Actually, it's kind of a back stitch. I'm not even worried about closing these up because it's all going to be underneath the skull that I put on top. So let me, I've already got pieces trying to escape. Where did it go? There it is. All right, let me go ahead and steal a little bit of thread here. The stitch that I'm going to do is a back stitch. Essentially the same as a running stitch, but you go backwards after each one. So I'm going to show you, it's a real simple process. This is actually a very sturdy stitch. If I had the option to always do this when I attach things, I always would. But depending on how you or what you're attaching, sometimes you just don't have access to the inside of the material, inside of the plush. And I don't know of a way to do a more sturdy stitch when I do that. So what I'm going to want is the ears to be right about here. The eyes are probably going to be roughly here. I will know in the end what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut out the skull and then kind of lay it out. But I think that in keeping with the concept here, that this is pretty much an even spot. I'm going to stab in through everything. Bring it right back up. Now, if this was a running stitch, I would just do the same thing and keep going forward. Same thing, keep going forward. With this, I pull tight. Here is where I went in. Here, on each side of my finger, I got here in, here out. I'm going to go in between and repeat. And then I will keep doing that same thing. I will basically go between where I went in and out on my last one. And it essentially makes a figure 8. This is a very sturdy stitch for attaching pieces like this. You can also use this whenever you are hand stitching. If you are doing let's imagine you were doing this whole project by hand. All these stitches that I use the machine for, I would use the same back stitch before I right-sided it out. Okay, there we go. This is driving me crazy. I'm having to stop every so often just so I can itch my nose. So I have a question for everybody. I don't know how many people are in here, how many people like to actually have various creations that they do as well, or if anybody does any kind of theme stuff that's the same as mine. I do goofy versions of this. But I have seen so many different types of fan art of this type that I'm wanting to do a collaboration with somebody. What I'd love to do is find someone that makes their own stuff. Say, like, for example, that guy who prints out the Pokeballs that are themed like an actual Pokemon. So they have like the wings or the tail or horns of who it's themed after. I've seen people that do these ACEOs that do custom artworks or pins. What I'm looking for is someone who does the same thing and would maybe like to all work on the same character at the same time. And we can maybe work together to do like a bundle. So people can order and get like one of my plushes. They can get one of their Pokeballs, some of their art. Maybe what we can do is we can do it all live as a group. So we can like do a group live chat where we all work on the same thing for like a week or two. And then afterwards, we can combine it into a bundle that we can maybe ship to each other and then ship to the person who buys it. And we can like set it up in like a really nice setup. They can get stickers and all kinds of little add-ons. But I don't know too many creators. I'm going to reach out to a couple people that I follow because I think they do fantastic work. But I'm also myself a pretty small creator. So I know that the likelihood is that I haven't earned my place that says, oh, he's reliable, he's going to do the thing, he's got enough people to make it worth doing, he does a good enough project. I don't know if I've got any of those things that would make someone want to work with me. But if any of you are viewers that think that that would be a lot of fun, please message me. Send me a message and maybe we can talk out some ideas. I don't care about your followers. I just care about what you do. And if you make some fun, goofy versions of stuff or serious versions, or maybe you do scary versions of these guys, just something that's not a literal one-to-one, as long as it's stylized, it's something that you do unique. No, it's not finished yet. I would love to have a chance to work with you. And if anybody's got any suggestions or you follow anybody else that would maybe consider, send me their information or send them my information to say that I'm looking for somebody. I'm totally open to that. I think it would be a lot of fun. And I'm going to start reaching out this week to try and find some people to work with. And I want to have some fun doing some stuff like that. All right, as you can see, I did not even try and hide these stitches. I'm just not concerned with what happens since it's going to be underneath everything. So what will happen next is I'm going to go ahead and get a piece of paper. Let me see if I can find one. I've got one right here. I know I do. I just have to find one with a spare piece big enough. Since I like to reuse my stuff, you can see this is actually what I cut out the belly from, or the chest from. Now I'm going to go ahead. I think that should cover what I need. So I'm going to go. Anybody who's new to this, keep in mind you want to have separate scissors for your paper and for your material, your fabric. I've got a clearly white one for my fabric and then this one for my paper. And the reason is because apparently if you use your fabric scissors for paper, it dulls it and it won't cut your fabric very smooth anymore. So that's just something to keep in mind. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and do a real rough drawing of a skull here. I want to go about here. Get this out of the way. I don't need it to be perfectly symmetrical. Usually I draw this on the opposite side. I wasn't paying attention to what side I had up. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to over embellish the skull. Whatever this is technically on the top of the original character is representing a skull in its own way, but I try to make it look more like a skull. I want it to have that actual shape, the knot where the cheekbone is. It doesn't need to be like scary, but I want it to have a lot more of a defined shape like that. And then I will cut this out. I want to make it a little bit bigger than I want because what happens is when I hand stitch this on, this tucks underneath. So there's a little bit underneath, just like you would have an allowance where you have a seam. It's going to be pretty much the same thing here. So I want to make it just a little bit bigger. I'm just going to go ahead and resketch that just a little bit, embellish some of the details a little bit more. Right here. Now, the good thing is if I make it too big, I can always make it smaller. If I make it too small, I got to recut the whole thing. Just a little bit of a curve. This is probably the reason why I actually chose this guy. I really liked him when I first got the game. I bought gold when it came out so that I could play with my cousin. And then he didn't really play the game. So that was kind of funny in itself. He was so young that he collected the cards and he loved the cards, but he didn't know anything about the game itself. So I wound up learning the game and playing and beating the game. And then that was it. I realized that there was no point in playing the others. I enjoyed it, but not that much. And then I kind of stopped collecting the cards for a while. Now my son plays it. All right, so it looks like right about here to here. I think this might be a little bit big, but I'm going to run with it. No, I need the skull to go to about here. What happens is I'm going to be, just like with this, I tucked the eyes in right underneath where the jawline was, where the cheekbone would go. So I want the cheekbone to be right about here so that I can do the same thing, which would mean the head is a little bit too big. I'm going to cut that, bring that in just a tiny bit, and then make it just a little bit smaller as well. So that'll allow me to embellish the cheekbone a little. Just a real quick adjustment. Since I'm hand stitching this as well, I also don't have to worry too much about what'll happen when I try and sew it on, since I can have way more control when I'm hand stitching. So if I need to, I can always tuck parts of it in a little bit more or less accordingly. Okay, so that should be good. In future versions, what I might wind up doing is cutting a wedge right here. In fact, I might wind up doing that now. I mean, look how much nicer it folds down as opposed to possibly bunching up. Yes, I know fully that the material is going to change shape a little bit better. It's got a little bit more give and take. But if I pinch just a little bit, you can see that it hugs the shape of the head a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and do that just a tiny bit. And that means you get to see how these wedges work. So by cutting a rounded wedge, a rounded triangle, what'll happen is that'll actually bring that end together, and it'll see how that when I hold it together, you get this bulging section here. It actually helps change the shape of this flat piece. When you try to bend and curve a flat piece, it does what I showed you here where it bunched up. But by doing this, it actually allows it to cup the head, that rounded edge, just a little bit. And that's a very big detail whenever you're making your own plushes. It's something that's important to know because it makes such a huge change. I think I'm also going to bring in this side just a little bit and see, what do I got? Maybe these embellishments are a little bit too big. Make that just a little bit. What's up, baby?
I like to take this out.
I'm sorry. No, please leave it in there. Nope. Let me see.
I push in.
There you go. All the way in. Good job. All right. I was thinking about finding a slab for him, a graded card, something that he might like but isn't expensive, to see if he carried it around like some kids carry a plush around. I think it'd be kind of funny to see him doing that and get pictures of it to show him later. All right, that should be good. I just got to get my white. I think I actually just brought my white back to my room. I will be right back again. I'm sorry, guys.
You bring it up. I come with you. Peacock.
All right, sorry about that. I thought I was fully prepared. I kept bringing all my stuff in and then kind of forgetting little things here and there. I decided instead of using white, I'm going to use this off-white because I think it'll make for a better looking skull on there. Oops, sorry about that. And this, again, I'm trying to make sure that I have the fuzz going a certain direction. I like to imagine that when you're petting it, you want it to be a certain way. I often forget with the snout because I think down for the snout, but I think back for the head. So I hope this works out the way I want because it'll still look like, okay, that's cute and cuddly and pet that head. But I'm going to have the skull going this direction. So I want to make sure the fuzz is going down so that I know what direction I'm working with. And then I will have that go this way. Down, there we go. I do use a pen. I use a pen because the inside of Minky is still very, like, it's got a lot of fuzz to it on the inside. And I learned really early on that by trying to use a piece of soapstone or a white colored pencil or any other colored pencil, it just does not want to show up and it does not want to stay on. So I use pens, and the good thing is that since you're going to be cutting most of your line anyways, most of you've marked with a pen will be gone. But even what doesn't, it's such a small amount. You don't want to draw too thick, but it's such a small amount that if you have to wash it, it doesn't bleed. It doesn't show up. And I just recently washed a whole handful of plush that I've made. I made like 3 or 4 of them, and then we had to wash them all at once. And they all survived completely intact, no bleeding, nothing inside a washing machine. So it's also good to know that these plushes that I make are usually strong enough that you don't have to worry about doing any extra type of cleaning unless you want to. And I do suggest it because yes, the more you wash them, just like any other plush, the more they will wear out. But I'm supremely confident that they will last when you do need to wash them. Now this is going to be all hand stitched. It's probably going to be one of the longest parts that we've done so far, aside from all the little cleanups and fixes and redos. And normally I like to use the same color thread when I do a top stitch, but I also tend to do a black or white depending on how the overall tone, because I don't have every color. Like I might not have a purple to match this. So if I was doing a top stitch on it, I might not use the exact color. I might use black instead. In this case, I'm going to use white. If I had like the same creamy bone color, I definitely would. But that's particularly relevant because, again, with the whole idea of being able to do what you want to do and learning without feeling like you have to be perfect immediately, it's good to know that you don't have to have absolutely everything possible to get started. If you've only got one color thread and you've got spare jeans, that'll be fine. You adjust your sewing machine until you get it just right, the tension's just right, do a little bit of practice, and you don't have to worry that not everything is perfect. And it makes it a little bit easier to start when you know that that kind of thing is not super relevant. And line this all up. This is one of those types of stitches. Unfortunately, I can't use a back stitch to do, because what's going to happen is I'm actually going to be sewing so that what it tucks underneath. See how I've got the edge of that? Let me see if I can adjust my lighting. See how the edge is folded under? The way that I'm going to hand stitch this is going to cause that to repeat over and over again. So let's go ahead. I'm going to start a stitch, very simple. You know what? Actually, let's go and pull this all the way through. I'm going to line this up where I want it to go. Oh, before I do, I'm going to go ahead and quick sew that. Oh man, there's a whole lot of things I should probably do right now. I had thought about this before, and because again, this is all new. I haven't done this before, so I'm remembering things as I go. I want to get the teeth in here. And I do want to get the head on there. So let's see what I've got with me right here. I've got some black. That should be enough for 2 eyes. Let me go ahead and cut that loose real quick. So here's 1 eye. Man, you guys were just going to let me keep going, weren't you? I completely forgot. And no, I'm not literally blaming you. I'm jokingly blaming you. I'm not making a particularly perfect eye. I just want to make sure the fuzz goes that direction. See, that's still too big. I am going to do an applique on this. Let me get the other eye prepped. It's about the same size. The reason I have to do both eyes is because I need to make sure that when they're put on, that they look okay together. Now, remember a couple things. First off, I am going to lose some of the edge here. So these eyes have to be able to fit in the middle. So that's clearly too big. You can see all this black fuzz that I've been talking about just everywhere, just piling up. I also am going to be losing a little bit of the eye, making the eyes just a little bit bigger, when I do the applique stitch. So if they're too close together, what I do is a light border that goes around the edge that is about the same as what you would do for an embroidery stitch. So it's going to be about 1/4 inch, maybe a little less extra. So I still need to cut these down. Just a teeny bit more. And I kind of want them to look a little bit like off center. Not off center, a little bit goofier, so they don't have to be the same rounded shape. I think that's still a little bit too big. Let me go ahead and narrow this, but not shorten it. So now I have that. And I think that. And what will happen is, as you can see with this, the eyes are not the exact same shape. It'll kind of make it look a little bit more funny to me. And sometimes funny to me is all that matters to me. I will do a lot of silly things just because it's funny to me. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch these on there. Let me go ahead and get a bunch of this fuzz out of the way. That is quite the mess. And I know the second that if I were to just kind of blow it out of the way, it's going to get right in my face. All right, there's that. Get some of this fuzz off as well. I want to have this go in the same direction, so I want this going back, so that way. And then same here. I'll probably ask your opinion here in a minute on whether or not I should add the nose. But for the time being, I'm going to go ahead and grab my material. I use this kind of as a stabilizer. And it's an embroidery stabilizer, so it's made for this kind of thing. It's just it's kind of a thread-like fabric. It's not as weak as paper, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was made totally differently. But this way, I can use that, and what'll happen is it'll create this smooth area for the machine to grab a hold of. Now that I've got that there, I will go ahead and pin these in place. And I'm going to go ahead and pin, well, I'm not going to pin them both because one's going to get in the way of the other. I'm just going to pin this one, sew it on, and then I'll come back and sew the next one. Let me get everything out of the way again. Readjust. Usually, to be honest, I completely forget to do the embroidery or the applique of parts before I do anything. And I wind up having to undo like several steps. And that has happened repeatedly. So I'm kind of getting a little bit better. I'm happy that I finally remembered. And when I do this, I'm going to center my needle. If you look here, you see now it's centered. I'm going to line this up really close to the edge. And I'm going to do just a couple back stitches. Now, with the needle up, I'm going to adjust the width of my stitch. So instead of going straight up and down, it's going to go left, right between each. And I'm going to narrow the distance between it because normally I have a stitch that's 1, 2, 3, 4. This time it's going to be right up next to each other. So they're going to be right next to each other as they go. It would be the same thing as if you were trying to draw in a line with your pencil. And you might be able to see. I'm going to see if I can get you close enough to be able to actually view this. But I can't guarantee what's going to happen with the camera and the light and my hands and all that stuff. But maybe you can see roughly what's happening. You should be able to see I've got one needle coming down on the black side. And then the next time on the white side. And that's going to be what repeatedly happens. I do have to give it just a little bit of pressure. Get this out of the way because I know that's holding it in place. And all I'm going to do is follow right along the edge of my black material. One of the things I'm worried about right now is my black thread has been breaking on me a lot lately. And I'm kind of worried that it's going to decide that it wants to break on me as I go through this. What'll happen is every now and then, like a spool of thread will be older or made wrong or just some random problem will happen and I'll get continuous repeated breaks on them. And I was getting those breaks when I was just sewing straight lines. So I'm surprised it hasn't broken already, but I'm expecting it to break somewhere along the way. Now, whenever I started doing this applique stuff, I learned pretty early on that the color makes a huge difference on how it looks. I first started trying using the outside color. Like, for example, what I would have done here is I would have done a white thread to outline. And I learned that matching to the outside material is actually the wrong choice. I learned that using the same color as your inside material hides it so much better. I think I have reached... Yep, there we go. I can see it. So here in just a second, you'll see what it looks like. I'm going to do a couple back stitches. That's going to set the thread so you don't have to worry too much. Hey, seal lover. Oh my goodness, my nose. And let's pull this loose so you can see what it did. There's a couple things you can look at here. First off, it's actually a pretty decent stitch. With this material, that fuzz does pop through. If you are super worried about it, which makes sense, you want it to look nice and clean and straight, all you do is just run it over a second time. More often than not, I have found that a second pass will completely hide it. You could also go slower. If you look right here, there's sections where it doesn't show through. I was going just a little bit slower as far as the movement of the material, but I was also pressing down a little bit harder on the needle, so it was actually trying to get more stitches in. So you have a few options, and it's going to be a practice makes perfect kind of situation. And the more you do it, the easier you'll get to identify what's going to be easy for different things. Now let's go ahead and I'm going to pin this one in place. Again, I want to make sure the fuzz is going up across the skull. Put that right about here. And again, if you didn't remember the size of that piece, it looks like a bigger circle now because there is now that little bit of extra border of the embroidery piece all the way around it. This might end up looking a little bit more like an alien head, but the good news is we planned for something like that. We wanted it to be a little bit funny. Right about there. Again, just a couple back stitches just to hold it in place. If you are doing this with a bigger piece, I always suggest to pin it. Once you get part of it in place, you can take that pin out of that side. But because I'm working so small, just a couple back stitches was enough to hold it in place. Now I should be fine to go. And that's okay, Seal. If you wind up not being able to stay on that, thank you for coming by. I really do appreciate it. Seal's been visiting for a little while now. And it's always great to see people. It makes me feel good to see people enjoying my stuff, my shows enough to come back. It makes me feel like I'm not a complete boring dude. Even if this is just kind of a weird thing to be doing live. Now, sometimes when you're kind of doing this, you find that it's hard to follow. You can get a clear boot or a boot that has like a big open ring. Thank you, Key. I really appreciate that. I know that there's a difference between seeing finished and seeing in process. But the thing is, I was like, you know, if I'm going to be doing this anyways, I can have a little bit more fun and talk to some people doing it. And maybe I can teach some people some new things. It'd be a lot of fun to do. But I know that it's going to be a select group that likes that. I want to want you to keep this in mind as well. If you have to stop to readjust, remember your needle's going straight left and right. So if you move a piece, this is what it's going to do. It's going to stitch like this. If you move, you want to make sure that you're moving in accordance to what direction you're moving. If I'm moving this way, I can have the inside or the outside so that it doesn't wind up leaving a gap. I'm trying to find the right way to describe that. Basically, like if you're moving accordingly, you want to make sure that the needle overlaps your previous stitch rather than causing a gap for your next stitch. And I think that if you're actually doing something like this, you can see exactly what I'm talking about, but I don't think I'm describing it very well. And for the most part, I'm trying to move as I go, so I don't have to worry about that. But when I do triangles, I always have to do like in my head what directions to set it. And if I'm doing like a smiley face or anything else, it's something worth keeping in mind. And honestly, there's a chance that nobody would even notice and that I'm basically overthinking. But if I'm overthinking, that means somebody else might overthink, and it's definitely good to kind of give a heads up. Okay, and here's this. Excellent. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the jaw as well. Let me go ahead and grab another piece of my stabilizer. I'm just going to slide this into the back. Pin it in place here. And I'm going to start off with just 2. And if you guys think I need an extra one, I will do more. I'm also going to make this a little bit wider, so it's going to be a little bit more predominant. Trying to move a little bit slower because I need this line to be a little bit more solid. Yeah, I'll go ahead and go back over it just a little bit. Hopefully. Yep, that's exactly what I was worried about. So it kind of got jammed up, and now I've got a big knot right there. I hate when that happens. Essentially, it's not rolling like it should, and since I don't have anything to pull on, I can't give it just that little bit of an extra force to follow through. That should be close enough. And I'll show you what happened here in just a second. I don't know how well you can see it. There's a couple spots that have a little extra knot on them. If you are trying to do some embroidery and it get caught up like that, you'll suddenly find that there's a huge knot and that you've got to cut the whole thing off. And it is super annoying, but I don't know how to avoid it. When it happens to me, it always just seems to happen at random. And I'm not going to do this one straight. I'm going to kind of angle it a little bit. Again, a little bit wider. I'm going to go a little bit slow. Oops. I forgot to change my spacing. I'm going to go a little bit slower here. Now I'm giving it just a little bit of pressure on the back end. Just pulling through ever so slightly so it doesn't jam up on me. But because I went slower, I'm pretty confident that I don't have to worry about going backwards. And that's why I did that this time. I wanted to make sure that I didn't have to go backwards on it because it bunched up on me last time. All right, I need your help. Do I add another tooth, another line, or do I stop at 2? And that's gonna be how it looks on the top of the head. It's going to look a little bit more like a hockey mask, but that's not bad either. Yeah, the threads get jammed up and it becomes this big knot. And if you don't realize you're not moving, suddenly you have a huge knot that you cannot get over. And then I've had to take my seam ripper and cut just an entire section off. It's so aggravating, right, Bobby? But if I pay enough attention, I can usually catch it before it gets too bad. And that's kind of what happened here. I got lucky. It's not quite as smooth, but it's also not a big knot. All right, so does anybody have any thoughts? Do you guys want to see a third one? I think this should be okay. Just 2 teeth. I think it'll look cute and match the aesthetic. But then the other question is, should I add the nose? Should I put a nose circle in there for like a nose hole on the skull? Does anybody, here, let me back up just a little bit. Does anybody have any personal opinions on that? I'm thinking that I'm good with the 2 teeth, but do we want a nose on here? And yes, I will lightly shape it like a nose. Add the nose? Will do. All right. Let me get some of this black. I think I've got some extra here still. Yep, there it is. I think 2 teeth. Excellent. Okay, 2 teeth and a nose. And let's see. We want it to go this way. So I need my nose to come down. I'm going to do much smaller than that. Again, I'm going to have to make it smaller, but let's see how much smaller. So quite a bit. The good news is we can also see what it's going to look like. Like maybe once I get it on there, it's going to look too goofy. Give it a little bit of a rounding. I think that's almost the same size as the eyes were originally. Get out of here, Fuzz. All right, here we go. Oops. Let me get some of this fuzz out of the way. All right, and what do we think? Do we like that? Okay, 2 teeth is good, so I'm glad we like that. Now, I think a tiny little nose kind of works. It'll round out the head. I'll move it down just a tiny bit. Hello, bee. Oh, I thought those were eyes looking around. That's funny. Yes, it is definitely rewarding when it works out really nice. And this didn't need to be perfect, so it actually has a nice little edge to it. And that fuzz does peek through, but I think it's okay. And I think Cat Bee likes the nose, so we're going to run with the nose. Again, it's going to be a little bit bigger than this, so maybe I'll cut it down just a tiny bit more. Add some shape to it. Just a little bit here and there. This is going to be a very tiny little piece of applique. I'm going to put it right here. And I'm going to try and keep it as small as I can so that we get roughly that size. I've already got these material underneath, so I'm not too worried about getting another one. They're overlapping a little bit. And then I will show you how we deal with the stabilizer when we're done. I'm going to have to do real careful on this. I got way less room to work with. I'm going to make the stitch just a little bit smaller for this back stitching. Then, I'm not sure how big I'm going to make this. It's probably going to be a little bit too wide, but we're going to find out. Make sure that I've got one on, one off. Yep, I make it's a little bit too wide. All right, hopefully this will do what I need it to do. Now, I had talked earlier about wanting to make sure that you get the stitch to move in accordance to what direction your material is. Let me get some of this rearranged. I just kind of moved some things around accidentally. It's going to be kind of hard to see. I'm going to try and change the angle. I don't think I can make it any better than this. Okay, so when I turn this, I'm going to make sure the needle is on the outside of my black. Because when it starts back up, it's going to overlap ever so slightly onto the onto the previous stitches I had already done. This is very tiny. I'm trying to also make sure that it's still moving and not bunching up and knotting up on me. It may be, I can hear it acting a little bit weird. It's hard to tell where the fuzz is compared to where the material is. This would definitely have been a good time to use my clear boot. But remember when I said that I'm stubborn and I don't want to do extra work? That's because I didn't want to have to take off the boot and put on a new boot. And I was pretty confident that I can get it to work. I think I'm going to have to run it through another time just in case. And part of that is because I'm not sure I got all the edges on there. Just kind of running around one more time. I think that that's going to be good enough. Let me line everything up again. And let's see what we have. I had it really close to the camera because I was trying to work within so that you guys could see roughly what was happening. I'm getting a couple of these extra threads out of the way. All right. There's a little bit of the black fuzz on this side. I'm just going to cut that loose just because it annoys me. But it looks like, for the most part, I got it. There's a section right here where it kind of seemed to have backfired. But that's okay. I mean, we've got a pretty decent-looking skull there, I think. Which I think is going to be, like, a greater portion of what we're trying to achieve. So, fantastic. Now, you can see right here is all the material that I used, the backing. Also, I forgot the word for it. All you got to do is peel it off. You can keep or you can cut off the excess threads. I like to cut it off because it drives me crazy. But there we go. Now it's just fabric again. And all the parts that are stuck inside here, they're almost nothing. If you wind up washing it, they'll probably fade completely away, but it's not a big deal. Now, normally I would switch out for the white thread. But for saving on time and because, again, not too worried about being perfect, I'm just going to sew this wedge real quick. Give myself a little bit more stitching. Round it out as well as I can. And you can see that I actually brought it way past where the end of the cut was. And that's because when you right side this out, it's going to do its best to take the shape that you sew. So right here, you can see that I've rounded as much as I can, so it makes a nice little transition directly to the flat section. If you don't, you're going to have a little corner, but you can see right there, nice and round. If you just run it straight off, you're going to wind up with a corner right here, which will kind of be, depending on what you're wanting to do, could be bad, could be annoying, any number of things along those lines. And we are now to the point of just hand stitching. And this is going to be the last thing we do for the day. So I'm going to have to rearrange all of my camera. Let's see how I can get this so we can see what I'm working on. Because I also have to be able to work. Now, I won't be able to see what anybody's saying, but I think I can get this so that you can see what I'm doing. So that should actually work out really well. See how it hugged the curve now? Instead of trying to lay flat and or buckling them all around, it actually has that little curve, and that's exactly why I put that wedge on there. I got to position this so that I like where the eyes go, and I think that if I put this back right about here, if the eyes are right here, I think that'll look good. I'm going to use white thread, which we had already set up before I remembered all these extra things I needed to do. So I'm going to want the thread to be right about here. I'm going to do just a very simple start. Now, depending on circumstances, I'm using the seam as the center. That might be plenty enough for you to not have to worry about tying any extra knots. And in this case, it is. I'm using a bigger needle. So quite often when I stitch through, it just moves all the thread around and my knot pulls right through. But you could always put this between your two threads. See, I've got the two threads here that I've tied together. You put this between them, and then that knot will hold it in place. So you've got that extra option. You could also do a lot of different things to hold it in place, like I did before with these, where I just kind of tied the knot. What I'm going to now do is I'm going to bring this up about 1/4 of an inch, about the same amount as I would have if I was doing a stitched seam. So just about 1/4 of an inch from the end. Realign this so it's roughly where I want it. There we go. You can pin this. You can just take a whole bunch of pins and you can stab it in place and pull them out, or you can just put them in place like that. Really, all you're trying to do is make sure that you kind of keep it roughly in the position that you want it in. And this is just a real easy way to do that. Now, let me show you what I'm talking about with the other option. You could just in and then right back out. You can see how the needle comes back out. Anything you do, just enough to hold it in place. It's not going to move much, but as you are hand stitching, things are going to naturally flop around and stuff. And the less you have to worry about where it's at, the faster you can kind of just put it together. And in this case, I'm going to be doing my very best to not pay any attention to where it is now that I've got it pinned. And each step is going to be slightly in on the top and then immediately back out. This is basically a ladder stitch. And all I'm doing is going right across to the head from where it came out. And then again, right across to the skull where that came out. This is the reason I wasn't sure this was going to work or I could do this is because it's not the greatest of strong stitches. I have not found a better way to attach something like this as a hand stitch, but it comes with the benefit of, look, I don't have an embroidery line right here. I also don't have to try and get this in place and embroider along the shape of this snout, the rounded areas, the extra spots where the ears are. So I don't know exactly how reliable this is. I don't know if somebody would do this in a factory, if they're trying to make it professional. I don't know if there's a different type of stitch that could be used that would work out. I also know that if I could get to it, I could always right side this out and stitch it that way using the back stitch along the whole thing, but that doesn't always work out. In this case, I could literally just flip it all forward and do a whole bunch of it. So I don't know. And if anybody does, you're watching this and you know exactly what I'm trying to figure out, please let me know. I would love to learn how it's done. When I did this before, I did it for, let's see, I don't think I have it. No, I don't have any other plushes that I've done this with, but I did that with the Pikachu that I did. And the reason I did that is for the rosy cheeks. And I just recently washed it and it stayed in place. I just don't imagine it's going to stay in the same permanent way as most of the rest of the stitching would. All I have to do is just keep following right along the lines of my skull. And with each stitch, go slightly in so it tucks in that ledge just a tiny bit. Now I can adjust as I go too. It's really good that I'm doing this by hand because I could just slide this in, slide this up. I can make this a little bit sharper, a little bit shorter if I needed to, things along those lines. But another thing I like to do whenever I'm doing this is I'm going to do it after this stitch. I like to tie it off every so often. So I'm going to, oops, whoa, that almost sucked. Come on, there we go. Bring it through, pull tight, wrap around, and close it up. Let me get some of my scissors out of the way so I don't stab myself. Man, my area is a big mess, and I am just causing all kinds of danger for myself. Now, if something happens, I won't lose all of it. I'll just lose to about that knot. And then just continue on. You're going to change the direction and shape of your stitch in accordance to what you are sewing. I do want this to lay flat. Now, another thing that could be done, and I thought about doing this, was sewing two pieces of the skull together and then hand stitching the underside so it would kind of have a little bit of a ledge. It would look more like a mask on top than just part of his head. But I felt like this would kind of give me a good practice run, especially since this is how I put together the small ones. And I thought it'd be a good way to see all the little differences between it. Just kind of keep running a straight line all the way around. You can see that what's happening is I'm getting just a little bit tucked in, and it kind of creates a nice little smooth transition. You can't even, there's not really even a transition like a seam right here. The fuzz allows it to go from fuzz to fuzz, and it doesn't even feel like it's a different piece. Now, if you are making a pattern like this that you are making as a permanent, a perfected, a practiced version, what you would probably do instead was cut this shape across the top so that you can just sew in with the machine right here along this ledge. Just like this was done, you would do the same thing here. And I say that so that you don't think this is the only option you have. There are lots of different things you can do in lots of different ways. I'm beginning to realize that maybe I need to change where the ear goes. But I think that for this one, I'm just going to start right here. So the ear is going to be tucked in a little bit more. I thought it was going to be a little bit further back. Now I see it that on this side it does the same. So instead of going straight into the head, I'm going to go through the ear all the way through, and then into the head, back right up, through them both again, and continue. It's going to be pretty much the same thing with just a slightly added step because you're having to go through the ears. And this is also going to pin the ears down. I'm not sure how I feel about it. With these ones, the ears were a lot longer and I didn't have as much shape that I was sewing. So it lined up with the back of the skull. So adding the little knobs maybe should have meant that I moved it forward a little bit or moved the ears back a little bit. But we will know after this. I think it'll still look good. It just won't have the same kind of floppy feel to the ears since I am pinning them down to the head. All the way up through. I do like to try and keep it as even as I can. So I'm trying to get it through right next to where the previous stitch was. And yes, this is a lot of work. It's like I said, it's one of those things that as you perfect a pattern, you'll find the best way for you to do it. I like to keep in mind when I make something like this, that if I want it to be something I make more of, I want it as much of it to be hand or machine stitched as possible. Not only is machine stitching stronger, but it is definitely faster. So what I would do is, like I said, I would adjust so that all of this would be cut out and sewn in right on top of the head with the machine. Now, one of the things I can do as well is I could also start moving the stitch a little bit deeper into the ear so that it's not as close to the edge. I'm not super concerned with that yet, but it's something I might adjust if I was making more of them. And by more, I don't mean, so I've got two different types of adjustments I do. I do small adjustments for simple things. Even the Charizard, which was super popular for a while, I only made about 7 of. So I didn't need to readjust it. Of course, that one worked out, so I didn't have to adjust anyways. But the small things that I did change would be like the length of a foot or something like that. But then the other type of adjustments are complete redesigns in order to make it work just a teeny bit better. Sewing on the skull to the top with a machine, that would be a complete redesign. Adjusting where I put the ears, that's just a small change that I would make from one to the other.
What's that?
All these stitches, as annoying as it is, I was doing this on the small one too, and it kind of got a little bit old as well. But it was a lot easier because I had way less stitches. Like by now I would be either done or halfway done. Even going through the ears like I had to do. All right, so let's see. I want to line this up just a little bit better. I got my head here. I think I'm going to do the same thing I did with this ear as I did with the first ear. Line this up a little bit so I know where it's going to go. And just kind of run that stitch just the rest of the way. I'm going to make sure I come out a little bit more. and just kind of go down just a little bit further in the back of the head. Oops, I just realized I have not tied a knot in a little while, so I'm going to do that right here. There we go. And just keep on stitching. Looks like it's going to kind of bunch up a little bit because I didn't quite line it up right when I sewed it. I think I had it on there fine, but I did not sew the way that I had it on. Ow! The inside of my finger is so tore up. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that is from all this hand stitching in the past. I need to get a thimble. I need to start wearing it. But I always wind up forgetting. And I'm pretty sure I actually have some thimbles from when I used to use for my leather work. I just have to go find it now. And I'm not even sure if the thimbles are all that helpful. I just imagine that that's got to be roughly what they used it for, right? I always saw it on thumbs, but I guess people might have been pushing with their thumb more, and I push with just this finger because that's the back end of my hand. And I don't really do all that much hand stitching. It's mostly for like closing up plushes and little things like this on the occasion. Oh, dang it. My thread tried to twist and get knotted on me. There we go. I'm not sure how much I've got this lined up at all. It'll be good enough for what I'm working on since this is a first run and usually these are just kind of like for fun. My son winds up having them. Every now and then somebody's interested in one and I'll make some more for them. But all the other things are the reasons for doing this. And it just kind of adds up when I have the benefit of being able to make some money off of it as well. I'm not a huge fan of focusing on fan art stuff, especially for a company like I guess it's Niantic or Nintendo, I'm not sure, that runs Pokemon, because they are on the occasion super strict. I know that their site says that they don't mind fan art, but that they also want to be very clear that selling is a problem. But there's such a fine line between just kind of doing something, because I've seen people just getting kicked for opening packs, and they're not even making anything. Fingers if you wish to. They also have leather ones for your finger. I'll have to look into that. Thank you, Bobby. I have an extra one. I think I've got one, and I know that they're easy to find. What is that? This is a big version of this. I have to remember to get it. That's the problem. So I am making a big version, a big cuddly version of this guy using almost the exact same pattern that I made the small one from. So hopefully what will happen, Smiles, is we'll have a cute one in the end. Now, I won't be able to get it finished today. Very rarely do I ever finish any of these in one day. But it is 8 o'clock. It's 8:10. I'm trying to get this skull on as a good finishing point, and then I will probably do the rest over the course of the next week. I know that this part is probably one of the least satisfying to watch because it's the slowest part. But we are running through it as quick as we can. We are more than halfway done now. No, don't get tangled. Dang it. Sometimes the thread starts to twist, and then it wants to get tangled up whenever it gets pulled through. Just a few more. I got to get here, and then I will start sewing where the ear's at. Honestly, I'm glad I don't have to do this hand stitching to put the eyes on. That's what I had to do on the small one because it was so small. But being able to applique these eyes on and then the teeth with the embroidery, that was so much easier. All right, let's see if I can't get this transition quite right. Tuck that in. Start sewing between the ear. I don't think these, yeah, they're not going to be even, but that's okay. It'll look kind of lopsided and goofy. In fact, I'm going to loosen that up just a little bit. Get that right over here. Trying to get this cheekbone now. Live visibility restricted. Let's see. Blurry screens, blank or blurry screens. Learn more on TikTok. What? Okay, so it says your live is restricted in recommendations and search results for 10 minutes due to low quality content, such as blank, or blurry screens. Learn more on TikTok section. It's because I'm not moving a whole lot. TikTok should allow content like mine. My live does not contain that. I think what's happening is that I'm in this small area and it doesn't register as much of the movement as it would whenever I'm doing lots of things because I've got it so far back from the camera. But maybe it's my lighting. Maybe the light kind of makes it hard to see what's happening. So maybe my camera is just not picking up through the light. And if that's the case, someone let me know and I'll make some adjustments to it. Just enough to keep it from flaring up, I guess. Because I've had that happen where the light caused it to flare up and you just could not see anything. But we are almost done and I'm going to be getting off as soon as I'm done with this anyways. But at the very least, we will get to see what this looks like with the skull. And I will show you where we're going to put the eyes. And I think we'll have made quite a bit of progress on this. And I think I was kind of worried this would go too fast, but I didn't realize how long parts of this would take. And that's just because when I did the small ones, I was able to start doing them in about an hour and 10 minutes, kind of real quick, because a lot of that was done with the machine. And I guess partly because it's so small. It's funny that you would think that small would be way easier. The truth of the matter is there's not much of a difference between small sewing and big. When you've got a machine that you can use, a lot of times, even the big stitches, the big long sections, sew almost as fast as a short one. You just press your foot down a little bit harder and suddenly you're done with something that you thought was going to take forever, or vice versa. Let's see, I think that I just pulled that through the ear as well. It's kind of hard to tell since it's all getting pulled tight. There's a lot of sections that are not popping up enough for me to see where I'm at. So it's not really a guessing game so much as just a trial and error. Appeal not approved. Review your appeal and confirm the visibility of this live cam cannot be restored in recommendations. Well, that's some bull. It's telling me it still cannot be restored. So let's see. It's not that. I don't want that to change. Like, I'm wondering if the color or just, like I said, my lighting is making a difference. The good news is, no, I don't like that lighting. The good news is, like I said, I'm almost done, but I've never had something come through and tell me I'm being restricted, and I appeal it and it say no. So that's new to me. So basically, people can't see me whenever they're going through their FYP right now, which is very aggravating. My understanding, I'm almost done for the day, buddy. My understanding is something like that, it dings negatively on your account. But my screen is got movement on it. I don't have smudges on my camera. TikTok does that sometimes for no reason. Yeah, that's pretty much what it seems like has happened. My thought was maybe because I'm not as movement. Usually I'm running through stuff on the sewing machine, but my hand should be making enough movement for it to be visible. I don't have too much flare. And it is just the first time that's happened, so maybe I'm just due. I know a lot of people have a lot of different types of problems with TikTok, especially with lives. Cat B earlier couldn't hear me, and I don't know if that was me or their app or their phone. They were able to fix it by resetting the app, so I'm guessing it was the app. But even that's not a whole lot of information on what happened. All I've got to do is get this to the very end. It's at the center is where I started. Just a couple more stitches. Then I'm going to back stitch it once or twice. The reason I back stitch it as often as I can is because it does reinforce the areas. I'm going to go ahead and use my pen cap to tuck in the edge of the last couple stitches.
You're not gonna...
I'm almost done, buddy.
What's that, Godzilla?
What's that, Godzilla? I don't think it is Godzilla. Oh, are you saying you're Godzilla?
It's coming.
Just a couple of these, and then I'm just going to tie it off. And I like to tie it off on the bigger piece. Like as opposed to the inside of the skull here, I'm going to tie it off on the head itself. That way, when I am done, I can feed this line back in where it came out and then out at a random place, as long as I don't stab myself by accident. Now, when I cut this loose, the loose end is going to be on the inside of his head instead of anywhere on the outside. And here we go. I mean, there's a few things I might adjust. Maybe it does need to be forward more.
Well, it's big.
Yeah, it is pretty big, isn't it?
Big eyes, Bubba. Big eyes.
Big eyes, yeah. And yeah, see, I intended for this part to be right about here. So I think basically what happened was as I started to sew, I shifted a little bit over in the wrong direction because this eye is going to be fine. But on this side, the skull's way in there. Now I can definitely undo this. No, man, I can definitely undo all of this and slide it forward, which I probably need to do. But I will do that later to line up so that I have both the eyes. Vance, I know it's not finished yet, but the eyes will go right about here. I'll have a pretty decent sized eye for it. It's like another live overtook the sound of this one. That's weird. It was loud and obnoxious. That was weird. Vance.
For this one.
I will, but I haven't finished yet.
Where's his leg?
Well, that's all the things I haven't finished yet. I'm going to put his legs on there. I'm going to put his back on here. What I probably would have done if I had thought about it, Vance, you have to give me a minute, okay? I can't talk. I cannot talk over you, okay? I need you to let me finish what I'm saying for just a few minutes, okay? Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. So what I might have done is I might have actually made some floppy legs to sew into the seam right here. So they just came out, and then I could have put the cuffs on them. Or what I will do now, though, is I'm going to do basically the same thing. You still have to wait. I'm still going to do the same thing, make these nubby little legs, but then I'm going to make them really short, and I'm going to put really short cuffs on there. And then I will do the back. I will probably reposition the skull over the course of this week and slide it forward and line it all up a little bit better. That's why I had those in there to begin with at first. But somehow or another, I just kind of lost my positioning and kind of messed that up. And it's an easy enough fix, but at the same time, it's just time consuming. He or she is the child. Please be nice. Oh, no. Cat B wasn't talking about Vance being obnoxious. Cat B said that there was a different stream that was the audio from that stream was taking over this audio. Like TikTok was glitching. I promise Cat B was not talking about Vance being loud and obnoxious. It's totally okay. All right, so here's what we've got. Vance, back up. This is what we were starting with. We actually came pretty darn close. We got a really good shape. I will finish this over the course of the week. I think the skull turned out great. We just got to move it forward so it's in the right position. No, that's totally okay, Bobby. I appreciate you standing up for me 100%. I was just letting you know that what had happened. That way everybody knew what was going on. Cat Bee has been around for a while. She's great. And really, I've seen you in here several times, Bobby, and you've helped me out a couple times as well. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go. Yes, I know. As you can tell, Vance is running out of patience. I'm going to go ahead and finish this up. I'm basically going to try and finish this off for next week, but help me out. If you guys want to see anything in particular next week, let me know. I'm going to try and order some material to maybe do T-tar. Otherwise, I'm not sure which one I'm going to make, but I hope you guys have a great night. Thank you so much for coming by. Thank you so much for working with me so patiently. I hope you have a great day. See you on Wednesday, everybody.